Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS. And today we have somebody who's long overdue on the show, the wonderful, the entertaining, the adventurous, S M Borthwick. And we're going to kick off with his brand new single, which is Take My Hand. So kick back, grab yourself a beverage, do what it is that makes you happy, and enjoy. Here we go, let's do it.
Dark clouds are gathering, getting ready for another storm. You gotta hold on to what you need if you believe it'll keep you warm. You tried to tell me, but your words got lost somehow. Black shadows fell across your face. You had to get away from this place. I tried to hold on to you, hoping for a brighter day. But it seems the more I hold on, the more it all starts to slip away. Won't you take my hand? We could dance like we used to do. You're right there within my grasp, but somehow I'm still miles from you. Could never fix what's wrong, and my thoughts reach this dead end. Maybe my heart's just not that strong. Come on, take my hand, we'll dance like we used to do. Don't know if this is goodbye. You won't tell me and I can't tell you. Won't you take my hand? We could dance like we used to do. You're right there in front of me, but I'm still missing you. Won't you take my hand? We could build it all anew. Please just say you understand, won't you?
Oh yeah, smooth stuff. Hi everybody, hope you're all doing well. Thank you for being here today. It is Friday here in Australia, and it's Thursday for the rest of you living in the So yeah, that is S M Borthwick's brand new single called Take My Hand. There is a link up the top there in the chat for you to go and check out all of his music, as there is in the description with all of these shows. So I first came across S M Borthwick, I think it was on Facebook, and then the first time I actually really got to know a little bit more was on Pete John's show. It was an interview. It was only a really short interview too. And I remember thinking to myself before I started my channel, if I ever have a channel and do interviews, I want to do a longer interview with S M Borthwick. And today, that fantasy is coming true. That fantasy, I say. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the wonderful, dulcet tones and incredibly creative artist that is S M Borthwick. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello. Sorry, I hadn't managed to unmute there. Hello, everybody. How are we all? Hello, Jade. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. I got my coffee.
Good.
I'm happy.
Well, I'm so glad that I was able to fulfill one of your fantasies.
Yes. Well, you haven't fully fulfilled it yet. We've got an hour and a half to make my dreams come true. I can already feel it. It's going to be a weird one for me today. These early mornings, they do weird things. I want to open up by asking you, tell us a little bit about that song. How did that song come about? How did you record it? What was the intent behind it?
In fact, that song was a complete fluke. I was working on an entirely different song called "The Hanging Stains," which I haven't quite completed yet. The song's written, but I'd wanted to re-record parts of it. And I was visiting my parents, and the guitar that's in the video is a guitar that I had bought many years ago to leave at their house. And I picked it up, hadn't played it much much recently, but probably much for a long time. And I always felt that maybe the action was a bit high and needed a little bit of work. So I decided just to detune it a half step so it would just be a little bit easier to play. And almost immediately just started playing that piece of music. And I thought, wait a minute, what is this? I don't really recognize it. And just began from there and just built it out over a day or two, and then tried to work out what this was going to be about. Obviously, it had a quite a melancholy feel about it. And so my take on it is that it's a story really about somebody that's trying to help somebody. They're trying to reach out to a loved one who is in a dark place and really almost doesn't want help. And they're beginning to question their own worth and their own value and whether they can really be strong enough for that person within themselves. So yeah, it's not an entirely happy song. I think there's a little bit of hope at the end of it all, but maybe hope in a hopeless place. I don't always write such sad songs, I should point out.
That's what we're going to lead into my next question. What would you describe your music as? A genre or a feeling? How would you describe your music?
Honestly, I would describe my music as a glorious shambles. I don't really always have a plan when I go into it. I try, as I say, the song that I was writing before I wrote that song is Joe and Barry. If they're around, they'll be interested to hear this because it's a folk song. It's actually written in the Scots language, and it's about the aftermath of a judicial hanging. So yes, a hanging, so a modern hanging song set in the old days.
A modern hanging song.
It's based on a true story. It's loosely based around the story of the last two highwaymen who were hanged in Scotland in 1815. And as it happens, they were hanged at the place of the crime, which happens to be very, very close to where I live. So I walk past the scene of this hanging more or less every day. And I always looked at it and I thought, that should be, why is that not a song? It should be a song. Why isn't this explode? So yeah, that was the song that I had been working on. So yeah, obviously entirely different from what I then produced, and then the song after that, which The Edge of the World, which hasn't been released anywhere. It's only on YouTube just now, because I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do with that yet. But yeah, I guess I just blow with the wind a little bit. I take inspiration wherever I find it and just try and run with it.
Yeah, because you do have, I mean, you did touch on it, and you said you have a lot of varied stuff, and you do. I mean, you've got music that's melancholy, you've got music that's dark, you've got music that's quite fun and jovial, and, you know, I'm always surprised by what you put out. Whenever I think I know what you're going to do, you punch me in the side of the face and don't leave me a towel to clean up. So I don't even know where that came
Wonderful.
from.
Wonderful. That sounds like a blurb for an album, doesn't it?
You can have that for free. I don't know how well it's going to go. All right, so we'll jump into the stock standard questions, quick fire go through every show, and then we'll say hello to the folks here after that. We'll mix it up a little bit different today. What does music mean to you?
Well, music in general, I think music in general, making music, I have maybe a slightly different take on it, but music in general, I know a lot of people who you've interviewed have said music is life, and I understand that perspective. But for me, music is absolutely fundamental to the enjoyment of life. But because to me it's about imparting kind of ideas and entertainment and maybe setting or changing moods, I see music more as language. And it's something we can all speak to a greater or lesser extent. And all forms are valid, even though Russ has some bad things to say about jazz from time to time.
And the Beatles.
But absolutely all forms are valid. And yeah, I really do think it's about communication. In terms of making music, I see it very much, and you probably see that in my songs. I see it as escapism. Music, I guess music is my mistress. It takes me away from the family. It allows me to step out of my life a little bit. Makes me act younger than I am. And yeah, just it entertains me. Even if nobody else listened to my music, it would always entertain me. And before I recorded, I would write a lot of songs and would just sit quietly and play them on the guitar. I wasn't really overly concerned about sharing them at that point. So yeah, just as I say, escapism.
I agree 100%. I've said it for the longest time. I think music is somewhere along the line as a species, we fucked up completely and got hand-fed this language that we use now that we use and has been used against us to misconstrued, to send us in terrible places, to turn us against each other, where it seems the only language that is spoken on this planet that unites us is music. And, it's the one thing too that has been monetized and commoditized and sexualized and everyized because they know, whoever they are, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but there is a lot of power to it.
Yeah, for sure. There's, I think it was Mark Twain, or it's attributed to Mark Twain, who said, when words fail when words fail, music speaks.
Yeah. And
I thought whether it was really him or not that said it, I think it is actually a very apt phrase. But yeah, language, absolutely, language is used to divide more than it is to unite these days, I believe.
It's funny,
so yes, music for the win.
Yeah, and it's funny, like with words, just on this, when I was young, like a face washer here in Australia, and another word for it, I don't know if it is around other countries, is flannel, which you see in a flannel shirt. And my mum would always go, wash your face with a flannel. And I would sit there and think about that word over and over, going, flannel, flannel, flannel. How did that word come into existence? But I swear, if you put that word in a song, I would never have questioned it. It would have been flannel, and I would have sung that and just gone, what a wonderful word. I don't care where it came from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it fits in the rhythm, I think it's fantastic. I wrote a song one time that was partly in Spanish, and someone said to me, I didn't realize you spoke Spanish that well. And I said, no, I don't play the flute either, and there's a flute in there. It's this isn't about being perfect at everything. It's about just being able to impart an idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great things about GarageBand is that you can say, oh yeah, we'll have some flute, we'll have an oboe or whatever. And say you're just playing it with a keyboard, so it's not going to be perfect to a flautist or for an oboist, an oboe player. But for our purposes, I think it works perfectly well.
Do you seek perfection when you make music? Or
I think I probably do, but I never find it. I think it's one of these things. I think that it depends. Because I'm a guitarist, I will try and get the guitar as good as I can in terms of what I'm trying to do. So I'm thinking, was it that song? I can't remember if it was that song or the song after that. I think I re-recorded the acoustic guitar at least 50 or 60 times. Not because I was trying to get it perfect. It was because every time I played it, I thought of a different way of doing it, and I thought of a little development. It's one of the interesting things about working on a song that's new, rather than working on an older song that you know inside out. If you're working on a song that's new, you're still developing it as you're writing it. So it never gets perfect because it's never really quite finished being written. And I say this to my wife a lot, when you're almost every stage of recording or mixing or mastering, and I'm by no means perfect at it either, but every stage there might be 3 or 4 really big decisions that you have to make, and an infinite number of tiny decisions if you let that happen. And so there has to be a time which you said, this is going to work. And, equally, there's been times when I will work on a particular thing, and then when it comes right down to it, I've gotten so used to the scratch vocal that I put in that I don't feel like I can replicate it, so I end up just leaving that or using it as part of a backing vocal or something like that, and not, just really not touching it ever again. Just say, that's great, that's perfect. I'll just leave, and I can build everything else around that. So no, I don't think perfection is genuinely achievable.
Yeah, I don't either. but to get us close.
Not with your own music. You could listen to somebody else's.
Yeah.
And say, wow, yeah, that's perfect. But you've not listened to that little tiny piece at a time. You've not driven yourself crazy trying to chase around a bum note that that you have to get rid of because you hear it and nobody else ever will. But you heard it, and because you heard it, or a little click somewhere, and you don't know what it was that caused it. And I've done that, and particularly in the early stages, I've done that. And then I think it was Glenn Clark did a show when he looked behind one of his own songs, and he soloed each track, and the bass track was fine, it was great, but it was a mess in terms of he'd cut it up and he'd done it in little pieces, and there was very audible clicks in between the pieces, and that would drive me crazy when I was doing that. But in the overall thing, you couldn't hear it. So yes, I have attempted to chase these things, and then sometimes I realise it's not really. I used to automate the volume in between breaths when I was doing vocals, and I think the last couple of tracks I haven't, because I've been struggling with optimizing performance on the iPad. So I just think, can you really hear that, or is it more natural to have it in, or just leave it? So I think your attitude towards these things develops over time as well. So there'll be times you say, that has to happen. This is a step I have to take when I'm recording. And then maybe later on you think, but actually I like the way that sounds, so I'll just leave it the way it is. So I think your ears and your attitude to your own music changes as well, and how you put it together. You get maybe more relaxed as you go along. Maybe more tense, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an utter convert of don't take out your breaths out of the song, because you are just hogging up system resources, and nobody's going to hear that. And did the Rolling Stones do that? No. Did the Beatles do that? No. Did all of the greats do that? No. So you don't need to. And that's the thing. Like, people don't realize the more automation you put into a track, the more you chop a waveform up into smaller pieces, the more your system resources are going to get hogged trying to deal with all of that information. Just for a breath, just for trying to give the sound that you're not human, because we all breathe.
Yes, absolutely. I did this all in one breath.
I could never see somebody sitting there listening to a song and going, "Wow, this song's good," but only if they didn't breathe. This would be perfect.
Yeah, I'd love to see this guy live. He must be awesome. He must have a chest like a barrel.
It's ridiculous. All right. The music do you recall the music that was played in your household while you were growing up? And who was it?
Yes.
Do you recall the music that was played in your household as a child? And who was it? Who were these artists that your parents played?
Sorry, I didn't hear the very last bit. Yeah, I remember an awful lot. My parents had a reasonably good record collection. They grew up in the era of the Beatles and the Stones, and so they had a lot of the old 7-inch singles. The original Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, the Spider and the Fly on the back. The thing I really loved about it was flipping them over and having something completely different on the other side. So you might know that A side, but the B side was the journey of discovery. Something I really miss in modern music. The idea that you only get one song. I used to buy 12-inch singles, so you would get that thing and then some kind of extended remix and then some other random thing at the end. So you'd almost get like a mini EP every time you bought a single. But yeah, the music in my parents' house, I suppose some of it would have been influences from their own parents too. And it was kind of smooth, easy listening. Your Johnny Mathis and Glenn Miller and things like that. But equally, I remember hearing. I know Pete recently did a cover of a Men at Work song, and I remember we used to play that song in the car all the time. We travel around a fair bit. We lived in Edinburgh, but my dad's parents lived in. My grandparents on his side of the family lived in Glasgow. So when we went through to visit, it was about an hour's drive, and there would always be who's going to sit in the front, who's going to get to choose the music, and it was a cassette tape, and it would be things like that. And I always remember Wings' Greatest Hits was a great favourite of his in the car, and we would just listen along to all these kind of things. But yeah, there was always some kind of music, and they were very encouraging of that as well. My dad's father had been a professional musician, and so he loved the idea that the kids would not just like music, but would hopefully play a musical instrument as well. Unfortunately, he never did. But
do you recall the first album that you purchased? We'll start off. Do you remember the first album that you were given, and the first album that you purchased, and what formats were they on?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that a little bit. I suppose it's a question. I guess a question of what would have been bought. Obviously, it would have been my parents, but what would have been bought specifically to be given to me, or what would have been bought that quite obviously wasn't their music, so therefore must have been for us. So we must have been very, very young at the time. But I do remember two albums in particular that they had bought on LP, and they played them quite a lot when we were little. And one was a kind of mixture. Well, one was probably the more impressive one. One was John Williams' soundtrack to Star Wars, and the other one was a collection of Disney show tunes from the Jungle Book and things like that. Although having said that, you think I Want to Be Like You from the Jungle Book is a fantastic song. Still one of my favorites.
Nice.
So yeah, quite a mix of different styles there.
We haven't had the Jungle Book before. It's always fascinating to me what it is, and it's always pleasant to not be Kiss.
Yeah, we didn't have any Kiss albums in the house. I don't think there was anything against them. It was just that we'd never heard of. We're from Edinburgh. We're from Scotland. Why would fucking makeup wouldn't be coming? Would be coming round our way. Can't imagine that.
Look at these poofters in makeup. That was a terrible.
It's like, look, you stay yourself. Yourself rattle.
I'm sorry for butchering.
No, you're right. You do pretty well. I always laugh when you do Patrick Baird, because you always make him sound so incredibly angry, and it's like he always seems a really laid back guy to me. Hello, welcome to the garage band. Yeah, it's like, it sounds like Billy Connolly.
I tell you what I love about the way he talks. He has those stilted pauses at the end of each line where he's like, this brand new app. I just love how he ends every line with those pauses. It gets me every time.
Yeah, I wonder if that. Yeah, he must have developed that style. I'm sure it's not. I'm pretty sure Patrick doesn't live that far away from me. I'm sure I'm going to have to try and track him down and pay him a visit one time, see what he sounds like just chatting, because it won't be like that. I'm going to try and get on one of his streams, and we can just talk at our normal speed in our normal accents and just bamboozle.
I just see you knocking on the door. Who's at the door? What the hell?
It's like, I'm here to play with your garage band.
Let me in.
Actually, that's the thing. People said, is it garage band or garage band? But in Scotland, it's garage band. We have a third. Garage.
It's whatever makes you happy. It's garage band. Oh, yeah, it's. I always find myself when it's brought up all the time. I always find myself pulling myself up before I say it. And there's nothing worse than questioning yourself saying a word that should just come naturally in your dialect or whatever it is. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know this, Scott, we still know what you're talking about, no matter what it is, no matter how you say it. Yeah, approximately. Well, once I get this hanging song done, well, we can revisit that, whether you understand. I'm pretty sure I'll need to do a translation for that one. Well, what I'm going to do now, we'll jump in and play another song, and then we'll come back and say hello to everybody who is here, because there's a hell of a lot of you, man. You are breaking the records today. 39 of you here today. Boom. Wow. So thank you for all being here. That's so kind. We'll jump in and play another song. And this one's dear to my heart at this time, because I was talking about this a lot recently by doing all these LumaFusion shows. This is The Edge of the World. And before the show, as you know, I was like, I can't think of the name of it. You know, the pirate one. the pirate. I'm such a shit host. I'm sorry.
I know, and the problem is I've got another pirate song that I was thinking about doing. So, that's one of the reasons I was thinking not releasing it yet. I was going to try and release the two together as a kind of double B-side.
A series of pirate movies. What am I doing? All right, get out of this. All right, folks. So.
A short series of catastrophes at sea.
So we'll jump in now. Folks, kick back, relax, grab your hook, screw it on your stump, grab your jug of mead or whatever it is, and kick back. And this is Edge of the World by S M Borthwick. We'll be back to talk more very, very soon. Enjoy.
Will you ever forgive what I've done? I've stolen and murdered and gladly indulged in every depravity under the sun. The ghosts of the past may well haunt me. The spectres of life have stolen away. I've tried to relent, I've tried to repent, but I still bask in the light of my glory days. Out there for adventure and riches and fame, we confronted our fate so lightly, with not a care in our hearts for the laws of the sane. When we reached the crystal Azores, our treacherous flag was proudly unfurled. We wrote on the maps, here be monsters, when we set our mainsail for the edge of the world. Heave-ho, heave away, right over the edge of the world. The devil feasts on misery as we sail over the edge of the world. Hey-ho, 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 hi. Hey-oh, we ruthlessly captured our treasure and hid our misdeeds under towering waves. We sharpened our knives, made widows of wives, and an army of fatherless babes. These cursed shores are no fit place for man, only the damned, the foolish and brave. A lonely young lass prays for my safe return, but I don't have a soul to be saved. Mother, you know my transgressions. Can you ever forgive your poor son? They say the possession's 9/10 of the law, but they take my wretched life to repay what I've done. The king's privateers hit us broadside. The ocean turned red as it roiled and swirled. I'll gather my brave pistoleros and dance with the devil at the edge of the world. Hey-ho, heave away, right over the edge of the world. The devil's dues will soon be paid as we sail over the edge of the world. Hey-ho, 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 hi, hey-ho, hi.
Army hearties. Oh. Absolutely fucking brilliant. It's the commitment, man. There's something you got to say about commitment. If you're going to do something like that, you have to commit. Those looks, those glares down the camera at the end, and as Auntie G said, that deep voice. I'm sure the ladies in the room are sitting on wet seats at the moment. It is what it is.
Yeah, well, I think somebody had said on one of the Facebook groups, "Oh, your acting is atrocious." I was like, "Thanks very much." That's what I was good. I was like, "Oh, were you trying to offend me?" All right, okay, sorry, I wasn't offended. I'm like, "Yeah, cool. It's good to play the bad guy. You've got to chew the scenery with it.
Yeah,
you're going to be the bad
so
guy."
when I first saw that clip, I was like, I thought the table at the front was just an image, and I was like, okay, so you've got the background,
Yeah.
you've got an image there, and then you actually picked up stuff, and I was like, oh fuck, he's got those coins, everything is like, oh dude, that's the shit, you know, that's the and I wanted to have you on here to do this interview, and so then we've got everything set up, because I definitely want to do a behind the video and grab the project and look at how you did it, because I think, you know, so many people are making video clips these days, seeing the insight into that, and I'm sure, you know, you can look at it and think, wow, that looks so difficult, and I'm sure it's quite simple, just very cleverly put together. What was the thought process behind it all?
Yeah, it really was. I just wanted to tell, because I wanted to tell the story, I needed a setting for the story, but obviously it was a very wide-ranging story, and it's telling a story of going to sea, and telling a story of pirate ships and then being hunted down by privateers. And I thought, well, I can't find that footage, and I can't put myself up on deck. When I first started looking for a backdrop, I was looking for something up on deck, and I thought, but you're going to have the sky in the background. That's not going to work. Maybe we can find something that looks like a cabin. But, you know, you're trying to find footage or photographs from relatively limited sources, because I think a lot of us who make videos, we're taking things from similar sources online, from Pexels and Pixabay, places like that. And I just searched and I looked, and I just couldn't find anything that I was looking for. And then I thought, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is the time to, as well as going for the green screen, I was like, you know, maybe you just have to think a little bit outside the box. And it's like, what could this possibly, how could you make something that looks like a cabin? And so the picture in the background, I think, is a cottage or something like that. I mean, it's if you look at it, it's clearly not a cabin. It's clearly not a ship. There's shelves and stuff on the shelves and things like that. They don't fall off. But it was just that. It was that wooden roof, and I found that really late. I found this thing that they did look like almost like the hold of the ship, and I was thinking, why would it be? Why would this captain of a ship be in the hold unless he'd been kind of caught and put there? And how would you have got a table in there? So I didn't. And the rest of it's just set dressing. It's like, what can I find? What can I stick in there? So the coins are real coins. My dad used to travel a lot, and he'd bring back old coins. So I've got this coin collection it's not really old coins. It was just the coins of the country that he went to. I think those are from Kenya. And the bottles are real bottles of alcohol. The ones at the front are from Spain. They're aguardiente, which a friend brought to me as a present, and I never ever opened. And yeah, so it's all just stuff that I had around the place, little bits and pieces and things that the feather I found in the driveway of the house. The only time a seagull has ever been useful to me.
Yeah, now that I look at it and it's on the screen, I'm like, yeah, I never thought about it before, because you just get sucked into it. Now you look at it and go, yeah, those windows wouldn't be on a ship. What the hell?
Yeah, no, it's
wicked.
And that was it. It was about it was like creating, because I don't know, you just create the scene, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, I don't have anything. I've filmed this, and I don't have the backdrops look ridiculous, because they were so limited in scope to bring them forward. So fitting them, everything was massive. So it's like I'm this tiny person in a huge ship. It looks terrible. So I was thinking, yeah, I'm not going to do this video. I can't make it work. And then I stumbled across that picture, and I thought, I don't know. How closely do people look? Maybe if I really act crazy, then they'll just be looking at me.
People get pulled into a character in a story, and they don't look for things, and that's the magic of being able to captivate people, where they don't sit there and find the need to go through it with a fine tooth, and that's what you did. So that's really cool. Let's say a lot of the folks that are here. I know 37 of you now. So Gary Hubbs, welcome here. Let's go through as many as I can. So we've got Scott Part 2 here. Who's one of our moderators, Black Covers, Clayton Von Kluge, Thomas Christ, Bear, Ashley H. Gem, who else is here as I scroll up? Bear, Kim Hardin Hudson, Danny Broderick, Deep Gravity's here, let's see, Cy Effin, good to see you, Auntie G is here, Danny Broderick, Hetriani, Ivan Idea, Russ8889, let's see, there's so many of you, Jenny, welcome to you as well. Tom Carrera, Papa Tom is here in the house. Friggsy is here as well. I saw Pete Johns at the beginning of the show. Andy Goldsby, Joe Glenn, Barry Glenn. I'm pretty sure Barry's here as well. If Joe's here, Barry's here. Metalhead Hippie is here. We'll give him one. Boom. Boom for the road. John David Lees is here. Welton Kinder, Dean Thomas. Man, doctor's orders. Who else? Gregory O'Sullivan. Man, you've all turned out today. Thank you so much for being here.
Amazing, yeah. Thank you so much.
Anyone else, just quickly? I'm sure I have, but I'll Night Train as well here, who's just dropped a really cool album as well. Man, and all these people here are making fantastic music as well. I feel like I'm surrounded by a star-studded cast of amazing musicians. Payin' to Get is here too. I think I've covered as many as I can scroll back to. John, Frank Songs, hello to you. If I see you pop up as we keep going on, I will say hello. But thank you all once again for being here. Did you take music lessons when you were young?
I did, but I guess, I don't know, they didn't really take. Like a lot of people I've heard interviewed here, I did play the recorder at school, and I wasn't very good. There was a lot of people that played it. We had a whole recorder orchestra, which must have been absolute torture for the parents. And they had all different types. So they had the big tenor one. They had all different sizes of. And I guess some people were good at them, but I was second recorders, which meant I got all the notes that nobody else wanted to play. So I was just kind of playing it. I suppose they were meant to be harmonies or something. I didn't understand. It was like this. I don't recognize the tune. Everyone else is playing this tune, and I'm going. And yeah, so I just used to stand at the back and pretend that I was playing. And I didn't really do it. And I had violin lessons at school as well, which I think probably it could have been quite interesting, but I was probably a little bit too young to really get into it, and didn't really like practicing, and nobody really encouraged me to practice because they didn't like the sound of it very much. And so yeah, I didn't go very far with that. I had piano lessons as well. My brother played the piano, and he was actually very good and went through all grade examinations and everything. But it didn't really. I don't know. It didn't really suit me. I think because I'm left-handed. Although I play the guitar with the left hand on the neck, that seemed logical to me. But for the piano, I felt like I wanted the keys the other way around. And I was only young at the time. I was only 7 or 8, I think, when I started the lessons, and I just couldn't really get to grips with it. So I didn't start playing guitar until 12 or 13, maybe. And I did take lessons on the guitar for a few years, maybe 3 years. But it was a Spanish guitar, a classical guitar. So I was playing a classical guitar style. We do some Baroque and Spanish music. And the teacher was keen to go through all those grade examinations as well and put me in that system. And then I started bringing him tapes and saying, can you show me how to play this? It'd be Sweet Home Alabama or something like that. Something that nowadays anybody that plays the guitar is like, yeah, but you needed a guitar teacher to show you. But in those days, there was no YouTube. There was no people spoon feeding you and go, put that finger there and then do that there. And then we didn't get that. You did get, there were videos that you could buy, but they cost an absolute fortune. Nobody could actually afford them. And again, it was about giving you what they wanted to give you, rather than folk on YouTube who kind of have to give people what they want to see or they want to play. They cover what's popular, rather than say, well, if you play this system and if you play these songs, you will become more competent and you'll become a more rounded guitarist. I said, no. I just want to play Enter Sandman. That's it. I'm good. I don't need anything else that you're offering me. Just that. Just show me that, and then I'll make subscribe. But I probably won't. But back then, you had an actual guitar. You had one-on-one lessons. But I started saying to him, is it possible if you can show me this? And if it was a song he knew, he'd be like, yeah, okay, there you go. This is how you play it. And if it was a song he didn't know, he would sit there and he would play it, and he would figure it out, and he'd figure out what key it was in, then he would figure out where it was. And so as he was doing that, I was watching him, figuring out what he was doing. And then once I had an idea of the process that he was going through, I thought, I don't need guitar lessons anymore. I'm just going to go. So I did. I stopped. And I thought, well, next I need to get into a band and I need to start writing my own music, because that's the next thing. And I stopped a lot of the time, I stopped learning other people's songs. I just thought, I have to figure out how to write for myself. And that will involve getting involved with other people and playing and just doing that. That's how you get better. You just throw yourself in at the deep end and say, we're going to play a gig. And it'll be a mess, but you just keep on going.
There's another Borthwick here in the chat, I can see. It's your nephew, Stephen, who's here. So welcome aboard.
Stephen's my big brother.
Another Borthwick here in the chat. I was going to say, look, I'm going to sound incredibly old here, but back in the days, it was those videos and the guitar books that you would buy, and they were like $40-50. I remember the first one I bought, I saved up for it. It was the Metallica Justice for All music book, and I opened it up and went, this ain't going to help. None of it made any sense to me. But these days we have everything on tap, It's amazing how far we've come with just getting that knowledge now, to going in, saving up $40 to go buy a book that you can't read. And I wanted to touch on this, because when I was looking for information about you, on your YouTube channel, it said pretty much, and I've got it right here in front of me, just a guy with a guitar and a passel of songs. Some light, some dark, some fast, some slow. But you're much more than that. Much more than a guy with a guitar. That's what I named the show, because, clearly, because...
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. But when I started out and when I played in bands, I wrote a lot of the songs, but not all of the songs. We sometimes wrote collectively. But in all of that, I was the guitarist. I didn't do anything else. I played the guitar. And the last band that I was in a long time ago, there was only 3 of us in the band, and the other 2 did actually sing songs, but I didn't. I never did any vocals at all. It was just like, no, I can't sing and play at the same time, and I don't want to. I don't like the way my voice sounds. can't hit the right notes. I can't coordinate all that. It's too much. So yeah, I was just a guy with a guitar. But when you start recording and when you start trying to figure out how you're going to do these things, you realize very quickly that you're going to have to do everything, you know. And I tried to record some of the songs that I did in various different ways with 4-track recorders and digital multi-tracks and things like that. Excuse me. But I could never quite get quite the sounds in my head onto tape or whatever. So I didn't really like my voice. I didn't know how to do the things that I was trying to do. I tended to sing too much in my throat, so I would always hurt myself. Strangulated vocals, and it took me a long time to figure out to kind of embrace the sort of the deeper parts of my voice, which are just kind of naturally there in any event. So I always felt if I just did that, I was copping out, and I was more or less just speaking. I wasn't really singing. And some of the early songs that I've released, you probably hear a bit more of that. They're not sung quite so much as the more recent ones. And I'm still learning. I've not ever taken any vocal lessons. I'm still trying to figure that one out. And the other instruments, I guess you just cobble together.
Kim has kind of asked a question here. I'll phrase it as a question. Do you like your voice now? Because she thinks it's great. Do you like it now?
Yes, I do. But I'm aware of the limitations of it. So when I write, I try to write songs that'll suit my voice, so that I have a reasonable idea that that's going to sound about right. So I know the keys that I don't limit myself to a particular key. I write the song that's on the guitar when I pick it up. I say, okay, that feels right. That feels good. That must be the song. What key is that? Okay, yeah, B flat minor, whatever. And I say, oh yeah, I can do that. You know, all the notes are there for you if you look for them. I'm always amused when people say I can only sing in such and such a key, and it's like, but you know that note appears in that key as well, and you can sing that. So you can sing the note next to it, or you can sing, you know, 5 steps below. Surely you can figure. And I think people maybe, if you're not a singer, you get very set in that. I used to say I can only sing in the key of A. I genuinely did say that, but part of that is because I particularly like playing in the key of A. It just works quite nicely for my guitar style, and you know, things just seem to set up the way that I want them. But I can't limit myself to that, because you could ultimately end up writing the same song again and again and again. So I started to kind of push it and say, well, if I can do A, I could do A flat. If I can do A, I can do B. Sure. And you just begin to expand it out and say, well, these are actually the same notes. And because I tend not, because as I say, I'm not a vocalist, I tend not to write vocal melodies and harmonies. I sit and say, these are the lyrics. How are they going to fit into this piece of music that I did? And I just try and piece it through and do it by ear. And if it works, then fantastic. But I always find it fascinating when people say, "Oh, no, I've written the melody." I say, "Oh, yeah. I suppose you could write it, yeah, or you could just grab a microphone and go for it and see what happens."
When I used to teach singing, one thing I would find with people, it's a common thing. You know, people would come in to you for singing lessons and say, "I hate my voice." And the first thing I would say was, well, that's going to be one of the first things we start working on, because we've got to stop you from doing that. And instead, we've got to change you from saying, I hate my voice, to I understand my voice. Not enough people actually, they feel, and that's what it actually is. It's not that they hate their voice. They just don't understand the limitations of it for now and what it can do for now. And then once they understand their voice, then they understand where their voice can go from there with practice. And, you know, like anything, and a lot of people get turned off from vocal lessons from me because I would say that, because they wanted to sing like Justin Bieber within 2 lessons. And I couldn't do that for them because I don't know any Justin Bieber songs. So fuck off.
Well, yeah, that's probably a difficult place to start from. Who?
Yeah, I have no idea who you're talking about. Justin who? So you went from having music lessons hither, there, and you moved into playing in a band. So I love this question. What was your first band name?
Well, funnily enough, the first band, I thought the first band name was phenomenal, but I look at it now and I think it would be phenomenal, but for another purpose, I think, potentially. The first band was something that I tried to get together at high school. And in the end, it was a bunch of guys that talked about it. And everybody, apart from me, everybody was like, oh, I'll be the bassist, because they think that's easy. They think anyone can play the bass, which I find a fascinating thing, because really playing it properly is very far from easy. So we never really properly got together, and we were never really, apart from just getting together and playing a little bit in bedrooms and things like that, we never achieved anything. But we sat bunking off at the back of a class one day, and somebody said, do you know a way of getting a band name is to get a dictionary and you flick through the dictionary and someone shouts stop, and you pick it, you pick a word, and then you do it again, and someone and you pick another one, and just at random, just say, yeah, stop. But because we thought this was a great idea, we didn't get very far through the dictionary, so we got as far as C and D. So the first band, and I don't know why we got those words, but first band was called Chain Shot Delay, which now I think it sounds a terrible name for a band, but I really want that app. So I want a Chain Shot Delay. I want to know what that is. I invented something that I have no idea. So if there's any app developers or whatever, a Chain Shot Delay, let me know. I dig
Chain Shot Delay. My first band name was At Random, and that's poo. I've still got the demo. I've actually got the demo sitting here. This was from like 1991. Look how bad that demo tape is. Jesus Christ. I dug that out for one of Pete's shows. At Random. What a horrible name. Chainsaw Delay. Is that what it was? Chainsaw Delay? Is that what it was?
Chain Shots. Yeah, Chain Shots. I don't even know what Chain Shot is. I think it's a thing that shoots chains, or it's maybe... I don't know, it's maybe stuff you put in a blunderbuss and shoot at people that's made out of old chains. I don't know. It sounds pretty. So, but a Chain Shot Delay, definitely try it. And
how did that go? Like gigs and
no. We seriously, we just, we talked about it, and we played in people's bedrooms, and everybody wanted to be the bassist, and no one wanted to be the singer. And
so did it get to a point where you moved to a band and played?
Yeah, at some point. And then we couldn't agree. Yeah, we moved. Not as high school. I left high school a little bit younger, and went on to university and met a fellow there called Simon. And he was a few years older than me, but just he played the guitar, but he played the guitar pretty well. But just had loads of confidence. Had a great growly, really roaring voice. And I thought, yeah, I need this guy. I can get a band. I can be in a band if this guy is interested in being in a band, and let's get this started. So I just sidled up to him and said, hi, let's, I play the guitar. I do too. Let's get together. See what we like, talk about different musical influences, and see what we can do. And we spent about 5 or 6 months, becoming friends and playing, and then trying to find other people to join us, which was that's always a bit of a difficulty. I guess you say it nowadays, it's like, well, gather round, kids, granddad's going to tell you a story. But back in the old days, there were these buildings we called them music shops, and you went in there and you tried out guitars and you bought them from the people. And on the walls there were cork boards, and people stuck up notices and they said, we want this, we want a bassist, we want a drummer, we want this, and you would cut the little piece of paper at the bottom so it was all frilly, and write your name and phone number so people could tear a little bit off rather than take the whole flyer away, so you'd have to redo it. And we talked to a lot of people, and we spoke to a lot of people, and it never and we would always find a bassist we liked, and then we wouldn't find a drummer, and the bassist would drift off and do something else. And then a friend of mine at university, Sandra, said, I've met this guy, he plays the bass. You should meet him. I think he'd be really interested in playing with you. And I said, yeah, she was having a party. I went along, and I met this guy, Christian. He was just crazy. We went to a bar, and there was a a cover band playing a Rolling Stones song, and I said we'll be like this, but so much better because they suck ass. We'll kick ass. These guys are nothing at all. And of course, everybody wanted to play original music, so yeah, we just do that. And that was the real band. Before that, we had an interim band, which was the same too. It was me and Simon, but we had found these two guys from ads in the music shop, and we did 2 gigs with them in Edinburgh. And we went into a place and said, will you play live music? And the manager said, yeah, great. We've never done live music here. I'd love to do that. So yeah, let's do it. Step into my office and we'll talk about it. And he opened this door and we went into this office, and it was like a cupboard under the stairs where the roof was like that, and I was under the stairs like this, and this guy's trying to squeeze into this desk that's 2 feet wide. I was standing there like that, nobody could move. And he said, Are you available next week and play a gig? Can you do 2 45-minute sets? I was like, yeah, just let us out of this cupboard.
Rock and roll.
Torture. And he said, great. What's the name of the band? And we're all squeezed in there like that. And I said, the Standing Stills. And he's like, that's brilliant. You do that's like Whiskey Stills, but also like the Rolling Stones, but a take on that. And they're like, yeah, it's because we're stuck in. You absolute lunatic. You're trapped in this place. So yes, we played a couple of gigs there, and they weren't great. I think we sat down and we said, it's next week. And we got the band together, it's next week. Are you playing all original songs? And we hadn't written anything. So me and this guy, Simon, sat down and just went, what can we do? We just do stuff. And I think we wrote 7 songs that day. And they were just quick, dirty barroom blues rock. And then over the course of the week, I think we wrote about 13 songs. And tried to teach them to the bassist and the drummer, who probably weren't really that into it, but they were going along with it anyway. And we played this gig, and all the songs, because we'd written them so quickly and we didn't really know what we were doing, they were all a bit too short. And we had 2 45-minute sets, and we had a couple of cover versions as a backup just in case. But we got to the end of the first set, and we still had like 10 minutes to go, and we were out of songs. So we just. You know Wild Thing? And it's like, yeah, everyone knows Wild. Yeah, we play Wild Thing for 10 minutes. It just gets on going. I was like, everybody sing along. This will be fine. It'll be absolutely fine. And amazingly, they invited us back, and we played a gig. We played the second gig, and it was just so much worse than the first. And it was like the guys had kind of the rush of excitement. They'd actually managed to learn the songs, but then they managed to forget them all at the end. And at the end of each song, and endings, when you're playing live, endings can be pretty difficult. It's a thing that you have to rehearse. But the drummer would be getting really into the beat, and we would give each other a nod like it was about to stop, and the drummer would never notice. And then he would be a little bit behind us, and we were on this kind of platform. It wasn't really a proper stage. It was a little platform, and right next to him was a set of steps. And I was convinced I was going to turn around and find that he just tumbled down the steps, because that's what the drums sound. That's exactly what the drums sounded like at the end of each song. So this is just horrible. So yeah, we fired him, and we fired both of them, in fact, and said, yeah. So that's why we then met Christian, and I said to Simon, you sit on the drums from time to time, and you can kind of do it. Why don't you just sit in, and he can play the bass, I'll play some guitar. He seemed able to drum and sing at the same time. So it's like, we'll go with that for the rehearsal. And I think we ended up playing 4 years with that exact setup. And it was a shame, because Simon was a really great frontman. He jumped about, and he was really good with the crowd and things. So putting behind a drum kit, I guess, was a bit of a risk. But he had enough kind of personality that it worked regardless. And so yeah, we played around Edinburgh. We got residencies, and I actually made money from music, which seems to be a rare thing these days. you'd get these bars where they would pay you up front, and then they would pay you a cut of the bar take. So you played for as long as you could, and you invited everybody that looked like they were thirsty, and just tried to make a bit of money. And eventually, when we went, Christian was from Spain, and we eventually said, yeah, let's try our luck in Spain. So we got an old Volkswagen van and drove to Madrid, got some gigs, drove to his hometown in Vigo, and played there. And yeah, we had a grand old time. But these things come to an end. As I say, both those guys were a bit older than me, and they had, I guess, other ideas. And one went off and get married. The other kicked off a career in the European Parliament. Wow. And we vaguely keep in. But yeah, he was a very highly intellectual guy who spoke a ton of languages, and he does well. I last saw him about 4 or 5 years ago, and we did kind of take to the stage. It wasn't exactly a reunion. It was a kind of birthday party. But he'd said at the time, would you come to Spain for this? And I was like, yeah, I hadn't been back to that part of Spain since the band in 1995. And we went there, and he said, it's my birthday, but also I'm celebrating the launch of my album. I hadn't spoken to him for years. And I said, when did you put this together? You've been working in Brussels, you've been working in Washington. How on earth did you do this? And he said, I cooked up with a Colombian producer, and we've been doing everything on, I do the stuff on GarageBand, and I send it to him, and he fixes it up on Logic and finds other musicians to put it together. And I was like, seriously, you can do that? Because I'd never had any Apple products or anything. So when I came back, I thought, I'm going to have to look into this. But I didn't get an iPad till a couple of years later. But so I guess that kind of sparked a bit of curiosity again. It's like, well, if it's possible to do this now, as I say, he got a producer got his hooks into him, and I think bled him white to actually get the songs made. And they sound great, but I didn't have the money to spend on that kind of thing. So I thought, I'm going to have to figure out how to do this myself, because I can't spend that kind of money on a genuine. And I think the guy was reasonably well known as well. He came to that party, and his girlfriend apparently was quite a famous singer in Colombia. She was a lovely girl. I didn't know her, but yeah, they had. I think he'd spent quite a lot of money on that. I think he said it took 7 years to put together, and it was 7 tracks. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. And I can see maybe going backwards and forwards and it being fit in other projects. He had other matters in his career to attend to. I could see how you could have that drift on, but I thought, it's not worth it if it's going to take that kind of time. I need to find a relatively quick way of doing it. Which is why.
And that's going to segue into what we're going to cover next. So I just want to thank Metalhead Hippie, who gave us a super chat earlier. Thank you so much, Hippie. Boom. I see Sean Chandler's here in the chat as well. Happy birthday to you, Sean Chandler. I hope you're having...
Oh, yeah. Did you see his birthday present? It's a twin-necked Epiphone. What was it? 12-string and 6-string. Looks pretty special.
I'll see if I could
Lucky
bring it
man
up on my screen. It's a beast. Where are we? Chandler. Let's have a look. See if I can get it. I can't. Was it in the GarageBand users group? I think so. I can't remember. Where was that posted? was it, or was it create, record, release? I'll have a look. I'll have a look in there. We'll do it while I'm playing the song, actually. We'll come back, have a look at it. Because I'm going to jump in and play another song. And then we'll talk about what's gone on since then, and creating music for yourself since playing in bands and since that moment of hearing about GarageBand. So this is what I'm about to play now, and it's a very appropriate song because this is do something different all the time. And we'll come back and talk about that after we play it. So, folks, kick back, grab yourself a birthday drink and raise a toast to Sean in the chat. And we shall be back shortly. This is Do Something Different All the Time by S M Borthwick.
Oh, yeah. Don't look the same way twice. Don't never do nothing 3 times, and that is my advice. Danky, 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 dang, danky, 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 dang, danky, 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 dang, danky, 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 dang. Do something different all the time. Gotta do something different all the time. Do something different all the time. Gotta do something different all the time. Do something different all the time. Gotta do something different all the time. I do something different all the time. Gotta do something different all the time. Grass is gonna grow, stones are gonna roll, baby's gonna rock, I swear bless my soul. Danky, 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 dang, 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 danky, 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 dang. Do something different all the time, gotta do something different all the time. I do something different all the time, gotta do something different all the time. Some say the earth is round. Don't care which way's up when you're getting down. Danky, 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 dang, 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 danky, 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 dang. Do something different all the time. Gotta do something different all the time. Do something different all the time. Gotta do something different all the time.
Do something different all the time. When I heard that for the first time, I was like, is this Scott basically saying, I don't know what I'm going to do right now, so I'm just going to write a song called Do Something Different all the time? And then, because I think that's an amazing, I think I always suggest to do things like that. If you can't come up with anything, write about, I can't come up with anything. It's because it's something. How did that come about?
It wasn't, it wasn't exactly that. I think that song is an older one. I think I'd written that in, I don't know, around about 2007 or something like that. And it is really simple. Musically, it is very, very simple. And what actually happened was I was playing the chords and I didn't have any particular way of recording it or anything like that to remember it. And I was trying to just get an idea of what the rhythm would be so I could remember the strumming pattern. So I just wrote down danky ganky danky dank. So it was describing how I was going to play it. That was what it sounded like to me when I was doing it. So when I was looking at it again, and that's practically all that I'd written there was this piece of music that said danky ganky danky dank on it, and that was really all that it was. And it was this sheet of music, and I thought I could do something with this surely. And so I just kind of thought of I tried to think of ways that you could always change things around and do differently. I think the line "Don't play the same way once" came from an interview that Jimmy Vaughan did about his brother Stevie Ray, who'd died not long before, and he was putting together, I guess, one final posthumous album, and he was trying to draw these tracks together. And he said, and the interviewer had said to him, you know, I guess the most extraordinary thing about Stevie was that he improvised so much. He never played the same thing the same way twice. And Jimmy said, Stevie never played the same thing once. He was just constantly improvising and innovating, and that in his brother's words. And it came from that. And yeah, I just... those were the words for that flowed quite easily because it was a relatively simple idea, and that, in fact, that was the first. I think that was the first thing that I ever put on GarageBand. I'd originally recorded that on a Zoom multitrack, which, you know, if people think that certain DAWs are a serious learning curve, get one of these old Zoom MRS 1266s with a little tiny LCD screen, and you have to scroll through every single drum sample to get anywhere. And you'd need to refer to the manual pretty much every time you put a track together. They're horrendous. And so I'd recorded it in that, and it was okay. But I then got GarageBand, and so the first attempt at GarageBand, and they got the audio interface, the first thing I did was try to find out a way to hook up so I didn't lose that piece of music, because I thought, oh, this is great, but why don't I try putting it in here? So I found a way to just hook up the audio output into the audio interface and then just recorded it in GarageBand. And yeah, it didn't sound great, I have to say. So when I came back to redo it, I re-recorded everything apart from the bass. I think the bass was the original recording from Zoom that I imported in that way. Other than that, yeah, everything is entirely new and entirely within GarageBand.
I'm going to talk about GarageBand now, but I did actually find this photo. So there's Sean's new guitar. Look at that.
There you go.
Look at that.
And the story of that is that it's a guitar from the 1990s, but it was described as new old stock. So I don't know where it had been in the back shop of a guitar dealership or something like that. It had never been sold when it was new, and I hope he paid 1990s prices for it rather than vintage collectible prices. But I guess we'll never know. Look at him. He looks delighted though. He's just saying, "Why are you taking a picture?"
He's saying, "Fuck off, all of you. I'm so happy right now. I'm so much better than all of you right now."
You'll not see me. You'll not see me for 4 or 5.
Awesome. So, falling into GarageBand, what do you think? Well, let's talk about this first. There's a lot of people out there who say, "No, but GarageBand's just a toy." What are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, that's fine. Let them think that. And if they want to use it as a toy, yes, you can. You know, I think that's great. And you know what? It's such a low barrier to entry that it can be used in that way, and it can be used as a really quick, simple introduction to how to put a track together. So my son, who's now 8 years old, I've been letting him play around with GarageBand since he was 6 or 7, and he's produced loads of tracks, and he gets it. He gets the idea of layering up and layering up, and they're all really short. They're little pieces. I've not shared them with anybody, but you know, there's some really interesting ideas in there. I remember one time he was doing that. He was tracking some vocals. He was taking it really seriously, and he was tracking some vocals, and he had a baseball cap on that he turned backwards, and he had the studio monitors on. And he turned to me and smiled. And said, "I love my job." That's fantastic. You do that, and it's like, you just do it. Just encourage it, and yeah, because it's so immediate, particularly on the iPad, because it's so immediate, because you can touch everything. You can move stuff around. Kids it's very instinctive for them, because that's all they've ever known. And it was very instinctive for me. I started to get my head around it relatively quickly. And I think it's fantastic. When I played in the band, we did book some studio time, And I really didn't enjoy time in the studio that much, because we were a gigging band, and we were so used to that feedback that you would get from the audience, and those bits that you got in the moment when you would look up at each other and you knew that you were going to go for another chorus, or just the spontaneity of that. A lot of that for me felt lost. It always felt a bit more stilted in the studio. And although, obviously working on your own in GarageBand, you're doing it a little bit at a time, because there's not time pressure and there's not cost pressure that there would have been in a traditional studio. If it takes you a week or 3 weeks or 4 weeks to put together one track, I guess, that's just the way it goes. A lot of people are not doing this full time, so that's just the time that it might take.
Yeah, look, I've been out places before. I've said this many times on the show, and met people. When I was in the US a couple of years ago, I remember being around a lot of musical people and meeting people for the first time, and people would introduce me and say, "This is Jade. Jade's from Australia." And for some reason, they always made it a point to go, "Jade makes music using GarageBand on iPad." Like I was some kind of leper there. And I was going, I'm the weirdo in the corner with my iPad. And I swear, every time they said that to whoever it was, they fucking rolled their eyes and were like, "All right." And I'd be like, what the fuck does that mean? Rolling? What are you getting at? Like,
But were they making?
Well, that was the thing.
Music?
Well, that was the thing. They told me they made music, but none of these people I actually heard of recordings of them or anything. And the stuff that I did hear from people sounded like crap. Sounded like it was recorded in my toilet. So, but of course, I'm not going to say that and say, wow, that sounds like my morning shit. But
that's the band, isn't it? I'm sure.
They're a band called My Morning Shit.
20 years ago.
Oh my god!
My morning shit. That's it. I don't know. I probably just made that up. It sounds like
I would be buying that straight away. My morning shit. That's right up my alley. But yeah, there still is this perception of this is and it's definitely not a toy. It's for everybody, and it is a toy. You are right. That's the first time I've had somebody on the show who has said that it can be a toy, and it doesn't have to be a toy. It can be whatever you actually want it to be. That's the beauty of it. And
the thing is, it can be a toy if you want a bit of downtime and you're not working on anything serious and you just want to muck about with something, trying out a new. I don't tend to use a lot of synthesizers and things, but if it's free, or if it's who was it, Yonak, who did a load of apps for £1, and I picked bits and pieces up and I just mucked about with it and just pressed record, and it's like, what is this going to be? And it's not ultimately going to be anything, but it was just fun. So yeah, it is a toy, and embrace the fact that it's a toy, because you never know what might come out of just playing. We forget about. I don't mean playing a musical instrument. I mean just having some playtime.
Now, you've said twice there, and I can't help this. You said the term muck about. And I need to say this. There is a band in Australia here called Mucking About with Your Ball Sack. No, they're called Mucking About with Your Ball Back. That's what I had to say, because they exist and they make some pretty funny music. But
actually, I was thinking there's an underwear company in Scotland called Bobags as well.
I think too with GarageBand and on iOS specifically, not all apps, because I do this show every day and look at apps. Some of them are harder than others, and some of them I have to take a week to actually learn how to do it. I think the ease of use allows people more creativity to express themselves on a much wider level than what they would in the old days of having a computer and a door that feels more serious kind of thing. I think that's a beauty of it, that there is an ability just to open it up and diddle around for a little bit and then close it, and you don't have to continue with it. You've got more freedom. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I was trying to think, what was it that I had years ago? I had Audacity on a laptop, and I did do one or two things with it, but I think the main thing I did, I had some tapes from the old band. I was trying to, and they were tapes. That's all I had. That's the only kind of memory that I had of the band. The only recordings that I had. And I was trying to think, how can I get this onto iTunes? How can I put it on my iPod? It was that long ago. But I used Audacity, and I hooked up the tape deck into the input, and just the microphone input of the computer. That's all I had, and just taped them physically. Pressed record on the tape machine and press record in Audacity, and yeah, that was. I don't know if it's great quality, but at least it meant I then converted from that into MP3 so that I could just put it. So I have that memory, but I didn't really get into exactly what I was going to be able to do with it. Just like that was my purpose for it. And after that, I thought, yeah, how do you can't plug a guitar in that microphone slot, so how on earth? So I didn't research that stuff. I didn't look at it. I just thought, no, that I can't really work with this. I was still of the mindset that if you wanted to record stuff, you booked studio time, and you got somebody else to set that up for you. You got your studio engineer to mic up your amps or your guitar. You didn't learn that stuff. That was why you were paying them. And so that's been a bit of a learning curve, actually, figuring that stuff out. Because although I don't mic up a huge amount, Martin Hammer, who's another very creative member of the group, likes to mic up real amplifiers, and he set me that challenge to actually mic up and record something. And so, yeah, I did. And it was a really interesting experience, but I often record quite late at night. So that idea of everything being in the box and being able to do it quietly appeals to me. But although, I still liked it. It didn't feel particularly old school. It kind of, in a sense, it sort of felt a bit like home. But yeah, nobody has that proper studio set up the way that he does. So it's actually quite a challenge for most people to do that. And of course, I was using a 100-watt amplifier. It was ridiculously loud. And the truth is, if you're going to record with a real amp, pretty much use the smallest one that you can, because you can drive it then.
Hetriani's written here in the chat, I used Cool Edit Pro 2.1 up until last year. Hetriani, I still have that on my laptop here and still open it up from time to time. It's the only door that actually still works on fucking nearly any computer you open up. It's a really awesome app. Whoever made that fucker.
There you go. You did a show on that as well, didn't you? I'm sure you did.
I opened it up.
I remember that
on
name.
Pete's show recently and was like, "Look, I have this still sitting on my computer." We were talking about old style stuff, and it's still every computer I ever set up, I put Cool Edit Pro on 2.1 because I think it became we talked about this on Pete's show. It became Adobe Premiere. Is that what it became? It became Adobe bought it in the end, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And they botched it. They didn't change it too much, but they botched it.
And there's the thing: if it still works and you can still get something out of it, if you still get use out of it, then it makes an amount of sense to hang on to it.
Yeah, it became Audition. Sorry. So, do you have a handful of apps that you want to throw at me that you use on your iOS device that you love and can't get by without? I just want to thank you. Thanks, Pete Johns, for the super chat. If you want a super chat, feel free to, and if you don't. Is there a handful of apps that you want to let me know and I'll bring up on the screen that make your life happy?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So I have an iPad, and I have an old iPhone. It's just an iPhone 6. So I don't use any GarageBand or anything like that in the iPhone. But there's a couple of apps that I put specifically on the phone for various reasons. One of which I think a lot of people have commented on and suggested, and is pretty much essential, which is Audio Share. And I put that on my phone so that it's just a little bit simpler if I'm if I think a mix is finished and I want to export it, maybe want to check it in different places, it's a little bit more convenient to carry the phone out to the car rather than the iPad, or drive around with it or anything like that. So I just find that nice to have. It's also I have it on the iPad as well, but I just think it's quite a nice thing just to have on the phone. And as I say, this is a pretty old phone, iPhone 6. It only does iOS 12, and audio share still works fine on it. So it's worth knowing if cost is a barrier to entry for you. Some of these apps do work on old
audio
devices.
share is like $3.99 or something.
Also on the phone,
like super cheap and definitely a necessity.
Yeah. And it's to me, it's so essential that it doesn't even really matter what the cost was, because once you've done 3 or 4 songs, it's already taken care of itself. There's no doubt about that. It just makes life so convenient for exporting, getting that WAV file, doing some trimming to it. I don't even use all the functions for it. I'm really just getting in there, trimming it and sending on to mastering. So yeah, I find that one very useful. There's one on here that I really like. It's just on my phone, and it's an app called Chord Analyzer, which I think might have been Glenn Clark that recommended that a while ago, and I thought, yeah, it could be quite a useful thing. And it will give you, it just lets you plug in the different. So you have an interface that's like a guitar neck or a piano keyboard, and you press the notes that you're planning on playing, and it tells you what chord it is. And that's useful for me, particularly because I tend to play, when I'm writing, I tend to play a little bit higher up the neck, so I might be using an open string and then higher notes, and just so I can note down when I'm writing the song, just so I can. I very often use chord diagrams when I'm writing out a song in a song sheet. But
I can't even find it. Is it an iPhone only thing?
Did you think it might be just the phone? Oh, it could be why it is. I'll hold that up there. That's what it looks like on the phone.
Yeah, it is spelled with a Z, but I can't even find it. That is bizarre.
Yeah, maybe. It may be phone.
It could be.
Maybe phone only.
I don't think I have my things set. Oh, it filters. Let's see. Can I choose by iPad only? Let's try iPhone only. Does it come up this way? It might be spelled different here in Australia.
So yeah, it just has this neat little interface. So you just tap the screen and you set what notes you're playing, and it can. And at the bottom you can preview it and you can play the notes, or you can play the chord, and then you get an idea of what it might sound like on an acoustic. And so it comes with that's a free app, but it comes with guitar, standard tuning, 6-string guitar, and a piano keyboard, and then it has in-app purchase that allows you to add alternate tunings or 7-string guitar, and various other stringed instruments, viola and stuff like that as well. You know what
it could be too? It could not exist anymore. This happens a fair bit, that apps disappear off the App Store. Yeah, because I can't even find it. And you may...
Well, that would be a shame. I was considering upgrading it. I don't know if I can upgrade it.
You may have it on your phone. If once you delete it could be the end. And because I can't even find it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll remember. But it's useful. So, well, sorry, folks, if you don't have it, and I'm about to mention another one that you can't get. Because what an app, I just love it, and I cannot imagine what the thinking at Apple, or if they were thinking, what the thinking was in removing this. But music memos, I've got it on my iPad and my phone, and just for noting down ideas, music memos was just such a terrific thing. And I don't know. I know they say, export everything to voice memos, but I don't think it had the functionality. It doesn't have the musical attributes of
there it is. So if you've purchased it before they took it away, you can still find it in your downloads list. But yeah, what a sad thing to remove. It was, what a beautiful app.
It's a terrific app. I was convinced when they were removing it, I thought they were going to upgrade the GarageBand for iOS and put some of that functionality in there. I genuinely thought that's what they were going to do, because the strange thing about Music Memos was it gave you a little bit of a glimpse under the hood of what GarageBand can do in iOS. So I wrote a song, and I was just playing it freeform and recorded it. And then I brought it into, and Music Memos identified the song as being in 5/4 time. And I was like, oh, hell, well, that's not going to work, is it? But I brought it into GarageBand on iOS, and 5/4 time came up as an option in GarageBand. And it's like, so it can do that. You've just chosen for it not to, and that annoys me a little bit to know that there's probably a lot more functionality available in GarageBand that Apple, for whatever reason, has not to allow. And I think I don't think removing Music Memos was a result of people realizing that there was probably more that it could do. I think they just decided they weren't going to spend time maintaining it.
Yeah, the amazing thing.
And there you go. 125 ideas.
I know. The amazing thing about it too was you could, like, I don't even know what this is because it's trying to load stuff. What is this? You could add drums to your humming.
Wonderful.
It was so cool. And this was what I used to use walking around, just doing stuff like that, humming into it, and then I'd come back and you could export this straight into GarageBand, and you could just import it would import the drums, it would add these silly drums to it and everything. It's fantastic. It's such a shame. Pete Johns has written here where I saw it. I've only spoken to Apple a couple of times, and each time I've told them how sad I was to see Music Memos die. Yeah, man. I wrote my whole Methiest album that way.
Oh yeah, exactly. The flexibility that gives you, I think, is great. And I think, I guess those of us who still have it are lucky to have it. But I feel very, very bad for people that are starting out that don't have that available. And I feel particularly bad for people realizing that there might have been a glimpse that GarageBand iOS could give you different time signatures if they wanted to, but it's capable of it. They just don't. And as I say, that it leaves me a little bit annoyed that they do that one. But it is what it is. In terms of other apps on my iPad, I'm actually using a lot fewer plugins on GarageBand right now. As I mentioned earlier, I'm struggling a bit with optimizing performance. Not really sure why it is. I don't use a lot of tracks, but and I don't use a lot of plugins, but I'm using fewer now. But in terms of the plugins that I do use, I still occasionally use Mammoth Bass, and I find, although it seems very set up for distorted tones, it absolutely is capable of cleaner tones. And if you take a look, I think it was Jamie Malander who took a look at that and did some mucking about with it. Sorry, pissy pantsing about with it. It would have been with Jamie, and he found a lot of clean tones and found it's actually incredibly versatile. So well worth a look at that one.
Mammoth have a new
another one
app
I think
way called Rhino, and it's so good. It's in beta at the moment for guitar. It's really good. Really
guitar,
good.
yeah.
It's coming out soon.
Wonderful stuff. And I bought Mixbox. Now again, I was thinking, was that you that reviewed it? And somebody from IK Multimedia came along and was really engaged in the chat, and I think probably sold quite a few copies that night, because they were just seemed really keen and interested. And that's an expensive app, and I must admit I've hardly scratched the surface. I think I've set up a vocal chain for that I quite like, that I've used occasionally. And I don't use it a lot. Again, it's heavy on system resources, and mine does creak a little bit. But when I have used it, I've always really enjoyed it. It's a beautiful app.
I do agree. It's very heavy on resources, and it is an investment. It definitely is an investment. But I think used sparingly. I think that's definitely it's really good for vocals. That's where I would use it too, for vocals, because you don't want to overuse it. But definitely on vocals, you can get a really nice sound. But yeah, and Pete's written here too. I love Mixbox, but it's overwhelming. There is a lot in there. There's a lot in there.
Oh yeah. No, you could get lost for hours in that if you really wanted to. If you really wanted to muck about and set up your own chains in that. It's incredibly versatile, very deep, and yeah, it's probably worth spending more time with than I do. But I was looking for something specific, so I've gone with that so far. The last thing I wanted to mention, you talk a lot about making videos, and obviously, LumaFusion is very good and very powerful. But again, like all these things, there's a cost involved. And before I got LumaFusion, I had been using iMovie, but it is fairly limited. And before I got LumaFusion, I stumbled across something which I have used for a couple of videos, including the Do Something Different All the Time. That was done in, I think it was done in iMovie in terms of the cartoon filter. And then I moved it across to this app here, which is called, on my iPad, it only says VN. I think it's VN Video Editor, which reminds me, I used that first before I used LumaFusion.
Oh, wow.
And it's free. And it reminds me a little bit of, it's like a mini version of LumaFusion. It seems to work in a similar-ish way. It was reasonably easy to get your head around. It's nowhere near as powerful as LumaFusion, but if you're just doing relatively simple videos like I do, it's definitely worth a look. Just exactly how much it would be able to handle a big project, I don't really know, but yeah, that's definitely worth a look, and it's maybe worthwhile if you're considering jumping into the making video side of things. You want something a little bit more than iMovie, but you don't feel quite ready for LumaFusion, or you're maybe waiting for it to go on sale or something like that. That's definitely worth checking.
Downloading right now. This could be a possible show that we do in the future. So thank you very much. Yeah, it looks fun.
There you go. Yeah. No, I had a feeling it was one of these things. I had a feeling that one maybe had flown under the radar a little bit. So I thought that was probably worth mentioning, because as I say, I did use that for a couple of videos, and yeah, I found it very easy to use. One thing I would say about it is that they have a default at the end. They put, it's not a watermark. It's like a final panel. So at the end of the video, there's this extra little bit, and it has a statement that says directed by VN, but you can just delete that. Yep. It's not, there's no issue with that. And it does, I think on launch, it does run a quick advert or something like that, but it just runs for a second and then disappears. But other than that, as I say, it's complete. I don't think it's got an option to buy it. I think it's just a freebie. I can
see here, so and we like that, because not everyone can afford LumaFusion. Speaking of LumaFusion, one of my cohorts sent me a whole bunch of really cool LUTs and things for LumaFusion, about 300 megabytes of new LUTs and stuff. So I'm going to add them to LumaFusion this week and maybe do a show on them, and maybe see if I can put them out for everybody to download. So that should be fun.
Oh, great. Yeah, sounds
all right,
good.
Well, we've covered some apps. I think we're pretty much at the end of the show. I want to thank everybody for being here today. First, I want to ask, before asking the final question, which I ask everybody, is what's on the cards next for S? Oh, I want to ask this too. S M Borthwick.
Okay.
Is this? Yeah, I know your name's Scott, and I know that. Is there another meaning with the SM, or is it? I don't know.
No, there actually no, there isn't. What happened with that was I was just going to use my name. M is my middle initial. It stands for Montgomery, but S M Borthwick. I'd always used Scott M Borthwick, and when I think it was the very first track that I released was in Pete John's original song Timbre back in 2019. And yes, want to thank Pete, who's been a lot of musicians' gateway drug to getting back into
It's the drug.
this certain madness that he's spread around the community. But yeah, we genuinely do appreciate you, Pete. Even though yes, abuse against iPad has been noted. But that very first track, I'd done the track and I didn't know what I was doing, and I'd made it far too long, and because I didn't know what I was doing, I was listening to it again and again and again. It's 6.5 minutes long, so every time I made a little tweak, I listened to the entire thing all the way through constantly. It was taking forever, and so when it came to doing the album cover, I just didn't have time. I picked something and I put the name of the song at the top and put Scott M Borthwick at the bottom, and I was looking at it, and I took it to my wife and said, "What do you think of this? What does that look like?" And she said, "It looks like the cover of a novel." I said, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It just doesn't. It's not screaming rock and roll, really. It's not doing anything." And also, I had years ago, I had actually published a novel, and it was Scott and Borthwick. So I'm kind of used to seeing that, at the bottom of the page. It's like, oh well, yeah, that's a writer's name. That's not a musician's name. And you like guys like, well, I like guys like J.J. Cale and B.B. King and ladies like Katie Tunstall. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of initials. There's a lot of initials in music. So why not add mine as well?
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I just went with that.
You're always going to find your music. That's the one big thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I'll hit you up. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Although I think Scott and Borthwick kind of worked that way as well, because I did that before everybody was using the internet, and then I heard that thing about optimizing, and they said always use your middle initial because it makes you a little bit more unique and a little bit more easy to find in search engines. And I was like, oh God, I always did that. Ever since I was at school, I always used my middle initial anyway. So it wasn't, just contracting it. It didn't really make that much of a difference to me. So yeah, just
the Deep Gravity's got some advice for everybody that we all should take on board. Don't use Pete Johns as a suppository. It's probably a good takeaway, and it's probably a great way to end the show right now. So I'll hit you with the last question that I hit everybody with. S M Borthwick, if somebody was becoming creative, when would you suggest would be the best time for them to start?
Oh dear. The problem is you already did, because you're human. You got up this morning and you chose what to wear. It was an act of creativity. Some more so than others. You can't not be. Yeah, the real question is how are you going to channel it? Are you going to channel it into something for you? Are you going to channel it into something that you want to share with the world or share with some friends? Is it going to be a magnificent cake you're going to bake for your Auntie Mabel's birthday that everyone's going to remember forever? Creativity just exists in so many different forms. You just simply can't stop being creative. It's not possible. So yeah, you don't need an answer to the question. You already did.
I always look forward to the creativity of what people are going to come up with that question that is asked every week, because it's out of all the questions I normally ask, it is an open-ended question, but it can be answered very closed. And I try not to ask closed questions, but sometimes I fall back into that. We're going to finish off today, and I want to thank everybody for being here. So many of you here today, so thank you very much for keeping the chat flowing. Thank you for the kind super chats. Thanks for everybody who's, all the kind comments towards Scott's music. You're obviously loved by many, and that's very clear by the amount of people who are here and the stuff that people are writing. And I want to make sure you all, if you haven't, make sure you head over and download his music and support him, because after this show, I will be, like I do every show, leaving his music on my iPad for the next 2 days. So eventually you'll see a big spike in your music. Whoa. And you may earn 13 cents. Yes.
Oh, You're too kind. I'm going to corner the M&M's market.
And I don't want to cut at all. But so we're going to finish off with a song, and this is a song I chose to play today because it's one of my favorites, and I want to ask a little backstory on it. So this song's called Strawberry Jam. You want to tell us a little bit about how Strawberry Jam became a thing?
Yeah. Before I do say that, I want to say a particular thank you to you, Jade, because as you probably remember, I had some technical issues with that particular song, and it was one of the last times I used iMovie because I finished it and I finished the video, did it on iMovie, and exported it. That was a Song Timber song from last year, and so I was kind of up against the deadline. Exported it and put it out and played it on Pete's show, and I was sitting listening to it saying, that sounds really wrong, what's wrong with it? And I realised it was in mono. I don't know why it exported in that, and I didn't know how to fix it. And I think I posted up the question on a Facebook group, and you just contacted me and said, just fire it over, I'll fix it. I thought, well, how would you can't? No. How do you do? And yeah, I think you did. I think probably used LumaFusion, which I didn't have at the time. And so yes, I do appreciate that. And it's just one of these little indications of the things that Jade does for the community. And so I appreciated that in particular. But yes, we all do appreciate you very much, and these forums that you offer, and all the efforts that you put into the various many shows that you've done as well.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate that.
Thank you for the very kind words.
So thank you.
I will let you in on a secret there, because I released the Enthusiast album as well, and I released my video in mono before you released yours, so I had to go back and fix mine and put it in stereo. So that's how I knew what to do. Yeah. We both did mono.
I do remember that. So yeah, and it goes to show you that you can work on these things, and you can reach a level of competence, but it's always possible. It's always possible for slip-ups, and you don't necessarily notice them at that time because it's you in that moment, and you're just trying to get it over the line. You focus on that, and yeah, these things can happen very, very easily. So yes,
thank you
again. Thank you. The song itself. Oh God. I wrote the music again. It was a Song Timber song, so I'm kind of trying to work fairly quickly. I don't release. I feel that sometimes I don't release quickly enough. I try to release once a month, but usually things slip a little bit. But Song Timber is a very definite deadline. So I was trying to work on this very quickly, and I'd written the music, and I had this line in my head that just seemed to kind of fit like toasted with strawberry jam, and that's kind of all I had. And I was trying to write, and I was writing this song, and I ended up writing this incredibly creepy song about a person that is really lusting after somebody, and he's trying to describe how much he likes them, and that's how much he likes them. Likes to, and it's like num num num. I couldn't release this. I was like, I don't have a Song Timber song because this is horrible. Everyone's going to go, oh, well done, that's really great. And it's like, no, this is just tragic. I'll be hounded out of every group. It's like this creep that is people to breakfast condiments, and it's like, yeah. No. So I thought, yeah, I have to scrap all that. I can't start, but the toasted strawberry jam line still stuck in my mind, and I was like completely flipped it on its head, and thought, well, rather than, yes, it's still a song kind of about longing, but it's a song about longing because of loss, rather than a song about longing because of lust. And so, yeah, it became a more mature piece of songwriting rather than my juvenile instincts. So yeah, it worked out. It worked out well in the end.
All right, and I just want to thank, before we go, thanks Gary for reminding me, because that song, that Prometheus song I did, which I released in mono, I stupidly sent that to Glenn Fricker's channel, and he reviewed it live on his show and was like, "What the hell, man? This song's in mono!" And he was just screaming, "It's in mono, you goddamn idiot!" I'm like, oh my God. The one time I decided to send a song to Glenn Fricker and I sent him mono. What a dickhead I am. But, well, you live and learn, whatever.
He would have found another reason to shout it anyway. I've seen it.
Yeah. I wear it as a badge of honor, having Glenn Fricker yell at me down the camera, "You're an idiot! You recorded it in mono!" I'm like, what a legend. All right, guys. Thank you all for being here. Remember to click on the links. Go and make sure you listen to S M Borthwick's music and all that. Follow him on the social media networks. And I am going to get the hell out of here. We're both out of here. Please stay on the line with me, Scott, and we'll have a quick catch up after the show. Thank you all for being here. And I'll see you on Sunday for the opening hour before Pete John's happy hour. And this is, without further ado, Strawberry Jam. Oh, yeah. See you later, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I can still picture you sitting right there, your quiet smile, a flick of your hair, the littlest things that thrilled you the most, like toast with strawberry jam. We forget all the things that we wanted to say, moments were lost as they drifted away. And no one will tell you that's just how it seems. You'll run out of time before you run out of dreams. You wanted the stars, you wanted the moon, you outshone them all, but you were gone too soon. It's the littlest things that I'll miss the most, like toast with strawberry jam. If you were here, I would tell you no. If you were here, I'd just hold you. So I'll gather the stars, I'll take down the moon and pretend their lights could fill up this room. But it's the littlest things that I'll miss the most, like toast with strawberry. If